Alright guys, so we will now start our discussion with the Negotiable Instruments Law, otherwise known as Act number 2031. Let's have a brief overview of the subject matter first. The Negotiable Instruments Law of the Philippines was patterned after the draft approved by the Commissioners on the Uniform State Laws in the United States. It's actually one of the oldest laws here in the Philippines. It's only applicable to those instruments which conform with the requisites laid down in Section 1 of the law. If any of the requirement falls, the instrument is considered to be not negotiable and would not be governed by the same. Basically, an instrument has to satisfy a certain list of requisites before it is to be considered negotiable. What's the definition of a negotiable instrument? It is a signed document of title or evidence of indebtedness that is freely transferable in trading as a substitute for money. It passes from one holder to another in such a manner as to give a holder in due course the right to hold the instrument free from defenses available to prior parties. What are the functions of negotiable instruments? Here are the 5 main functions of negotiable instruments. First, it is a substitute for money. It's impractical, I think. It's not practical to bring loads of cash outside your house, or whenever you want to buy something or you want to do transactions that involves money or monetary compensations. It's not practical to bring a huge amount of cash. So a negotiable instrument as a substitute for money is very effective. It's also efficient. Second, it is a medium of exchange. Third, it is a credit instrument which increases credit circulation. Fourth, it increases purchasing power in circulation. We all know that the reason why a currency's purchasing power decreases is if there's too much physical money going around. Since a negotiable instrument is an effective or an efficient substitute for money, it's an alternative for money, then instead of the Banco Central creating more physical currency, physical money to add to the circulation, we'll just use a negotiable instrument. So the risk of inflation is actually lessened, since again, instead of using tangible and physical money to do your transactions, you use a negotiable instrument as your medium of exchange. Next, it is proof of transactions. Of course, once it has been proven that a negotiable instrument is valid, it is an evidence of transaction. Negotiable instruments are not legal tender. Section 52 of the new Central Bank Act, RA number 7653, provides that only notes and coins issued by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas are considered legal tender. When we say legal tender, we refer to the money that we use, everyday, money that we use to buy everything that we want. But only notes and coins issued by the Bangko Sentral can be considered as such. Even though negotiable instruments are efficient and effective alternatives for money, you cannot consider them as legal tender. Why? Guys, please take note of this. A negotiable instrument's worth or value. Let's use the word value. Again, a negotiable instrument's value is dependent on the financial ability of the parties involved. Unlike money, money has an intrinsic worth, or like an inherent value, independent from the parties holding it or independent from the parties in possession of the money. The money itself has value. However, a negotiable instrument's value or worth is dependent on the financial ability of the parties involved. I've already repeated myself, but that's just for emphasis, guys. So I hope that's clear. Excuse me. So what are the features of negotiable instruments? First, negotiability. Now, the characteristic of negotiability allows negotiable instruments to be transferred from one person to another so as to constitute the transferee to be a holder who can be a holder in due course that is free from personal defenses. When we say negotiability, guys, it's just the ability, or the trait rather, the feature of a negotiable instrument to be transferred from one person to another. So when you hand on, when an instrument does not lose its value, even if it's being passed on from one person to another, that's one essential trait of a negotiable instrument, or a telltale sign that is a negotiable instrument. Accumulation of secondary contracts. As negotiable instruments are transferred from one person to another, additional parties can become involved. Secondary contracts are accumulated because the endorsers become secondarily liable not only to their immediate transferees but also to any holder. So accumulation of secondary contracts involves other parties. It's like having secondary liabilities, because when an instrument can be negotiated or is capable of being transferred from one hand to another, the liabilities rather, is not unique to one party alone. The liability can also be transferred from one person to another, thus creating secondary contracts in the process. What are the kinds of negotiable instruments? Now, there are two main kinds, the promissory note and the bill of exchange, but I'll be discussing each one briefly. The promissory note, sometimes referred to as a note payable, is a legal instrument in which one party promises in writing to pay a determinate sum of money to the other, either at a fixed or determinable future time or in demand of the payee under specific terms. Who are the parties involved in a promissory note? We have the maker and the payee. Of course, the maker is the one who creates the promissory note, and the payee is the party who is supposed to be paid or is the recipient of the payment. Kinds of promissory notes. I think you're familiar with bonds. I'm not going to discuss each one because my partner will discuss it. Rafi will. Here, bill of exchange. A bill of exchange is an unconditional order in writing addressed by one person to another, signed by the person giving it, requiring the person to whom it is addressed to pay on demand or at a fixed or determinable future time some certain money to order or to bear. Now, who are the parties involved in a bill of exchange? Please take note of these parties because we will be using these terms later on during my report. So for you to not get confused, again, take note. First, the drawer. This party draws and signs the instrument. Second is a drawee. This party is the one ordered to pay. However, while he appears to be party on the face of the bill, he is not yet liable until he accepts. Again, the drawee is not yet liable until he accepts, because a drawee may issue a notice of dishonor to the holder of the negotiable instrument for whatever valid reason. Again, guys, a drawee can refuse the presentment of the negotiable instrument, but we'll discuss that later. Next is the acceptor. Now, once a drawee accepts the bill, bill of exchange, he's already considered to be an acceptor. In other words, he already accepted the order of the drawer to pay, so now he's already liable. If previously he's called to be a drawee and he has not yet accepted the negotiable instrument, he's not yet liable, but once he accepts it, of course, he will be liable. Payee is the party who receives the amount specified in the bill of exchange. Example. Again, please take note of this example because we will be using this example for reference later on. Say for example, this is how a check looks like for NYZ Bank, Ayala Branch, Makati City. The account name is under Sri Villaflor. Account number is 24689AB. With the order paid to the order of Jericho Alajenio, 3,000 pesos only. Signed, Sri Villaflor. So in this example, guys, the drawer is Shri, of course, because she's the one who signed the check. The drawee is NYZ Bank. The payee is Jericho. Now the drawee, NYZ Bank, may accept or may either accept or refuse Jericho once he presents a negotiable instrument. Again, like what I've said earlier, a negotiable instrument's value is dependent on the financial ability of the parties involved. Okay? So, NYZ Bank is considered to be both the drawee and the acceptor in this one if NYZ Bank accepts the negotiable instrument or the check. Once NYZ Bank accepts the check, then they are liable to Jericho. They have to pay Jericho the amount of 3,000 pesos. Gets? Alright. Kinds of bills of exchange. This will be discussed by my partner. Now, although promissory notes and bills of exchange are vastly different, a bill of exchange may be treated as a promissory note if first the drawer and the drawee of the bill of exchange are the same person, when the drawee is a fictitious person, third, when the drawee has no capacity to contract, fourth, when the instrument is so ambiguous that there is doubt whether it is a bill or a note. Other parties, excuse me, we have the endorsers, the holder, and the bearer. It's very self-explanatory, guys. Endorsers, the people who transfer and negotiate an instrument by endorsement completed by delivery. Holder, of course, the one who is in possession of the negotiable instrument. Promissory note and bill of exchange. Distinctions. It's very important that we understand the main distinctions between a promissory note and a bill of exchange, given the fact that a bill of exchange may be considered a promissory note, as what we have discussed just a few seconds ago. So here are their main distinctions. First, a promissory note contains an unconditional promise, while a bill of exchange contains an unconditional order. I think I don't have to explain the difference between a promise and an order. It's common sense and it's self-explanatory. Second, there are two parties on its face for promissory notes, and in a bill of exchange, usually there are three parties on its face. Third, the person who signs it is the maker. The person who signs a bill of exchange is the drawer. In a promissory note, because the maker is the one who signed the promissory note, he is primarily liable. While in the bill of exchange, even if the drawer was the one who signed the bill of exchange, like Shri earlier, because a check is a kind of a bill of exchange, he will be considered secondarily liable. The principal liability will now rest on the acceptor, right? The drawee, once he accepts the negotiable instrument. So that would mean that the drawer, the one who signed the check or the bill of exchange, is now secondarily liable. Unlike in a promissory note, the maker is a primary or carries the primary liability. There's only one presentment for payment in a promissory note, and there are two presentments in a bill of exchange, one for acceptance and one for payment. Why? This characteristic of the bill of exchange having two presentments can be substantiated in my previous example. Can be seen rather in my previous example, because again, the drawee may refuse or may give a notice of dishonor, may refuse rather, whatever, the presentment of a negotiable instrument. There. Although a check is a kind of a bill of exchange, there are still differences that we have to take note. In a check, the Joey always has to be a bank. In a regular bill of exchange, a Joey may or may not be a bank. A check is always payable on demand, while the bill of exchange takes the exact opposite. Here. The death of the drawer of a check with the knowledge by the bank revokes the authority of the banker to pay, but in a bill of exchange, the death of a drawer of a bill of exchange with the knowledge of the bank does not revoke the author of the banker to pay. Here are the main differences between negotiable instruments versus non-negotiable. Of course, negotiable instruments have to satisfy all the requisites laid down in Section 1 of Act 2031. They are transferred by negotiation or by assignment, and the transferees can be a holder in due course. Now, I think this is very clear and self-explanatory. Let me just take note that the negotiable instruments law does not apply in non-negotiable instruments except by analogy. They can still use it though, again for analogy purposes. And non-negotiables are only transferred through assignment. I don't think I have to dissect this specifically, but let's just go through this as briefly as possible. Here's what happens when a negotiable instrument is going through the process of transactions. First, the preparation and signing. Of course, you have to sign a negotiable instrument for it to be valid. The issuance, first delivery of the instrument to the payee, from the maker to payee, or from the drawer to the payee. Negotiation, we've already discussed that. Presentment for acceptance. Again, there are certain kinds of bills of exchange which needs a presentment for acceptance, so that the bill of exchange presented to the drawee, the drawee has to agree to the. Let me collect my thoughts. Again, the bill of exchange shall be presented to the drawee so that the latter will signify his agreement to the order of the drawee to pay. Acceptance, of course, written as hand of the drawee to the order. Dishonor by non-acceptance if the drawee refuses to accept the negotiable instrument. This is what happens. Presentment for payment. The instrument is shown to the maker. Dishonor by non-payment, refusal to pay by the maker, drawee, or acceptor. Notice of dishonor, protest, both will be further discussed by my partner. Let's now proceed to the form and interpretation of the negotiable instruments. This is what I've been telling you earlier, guys. Section 1 covers all the necessary requisites for an instrument to be considered negotiable. First, it must be in writing and signed by the maker or drawer. Second, it must contain an unconditional promise or order to pay a sum certain in money. Third, it must be payable on demand or at a fixed or determinable future time. Fourth, it must be payable to order to bearer. And fifth, where the instrument is addressed to a drawee, he must be named or otherwise indicated therein with reasonable certainty. It's pretty much clear, so I'm not gonna go through it one by one. But if you have any questions as to the requisites of a negotiable instrument, you can just drop your query in the comment section below. Okay? Let's proceed. Section 2 discusses what constitutes certainty as to sum. The sum payable is a sum certain within the meaning of this act, although it is to be paid with interest, or by stated installments, with the provision that upon default in payment of any installment or of interest, the whole shall become due, or with exchange, whether at a fixed rate or at the current rate, or with cost of collection or an attorney's fee, in case payment shall not be made at maturity. Section 3. When promise is unconditional. An unqualified order or promise to pay is unconditional within the meaning of this act, though coupled with an indication of a particular fund out of which reimbursement is to be made, or a particular account to be debited with the amount, or a statement of the transaction which gives rise to the instrument, but an order or promise to pay out of a particular fund is not conditional. Section 4 states what constitutes as determinable future time. An instrument is payable at a determinable future time if it is at a fixed period after the other side, or on or before a fixed or determinable future time specified therein, or on or at a fixed period after the occurrence of a specified event which is certain to happen, though the time of happening be uncertain. An instrument payable upon a contingency is not negotiable, and the happening of the event does not cure the defect. Take note of that, guys. This one. An instrument payable upon a contingency is not negotiable, and the happening of the event does not cure the defect. What do we mean by an instrument payable upon a contingency? Sorry. It means it's conditional, and as what I have read and said earlier, as to the kinds of negotiable instruments as promissory notes and bills of exchange, we know that both are made in an unconditional manner. A promissory note is an unconditional promise, while a bill of exchange is an unconditional order. It must not be payable upon a contingency. Okay. Section 5, additional provisions not affecting negotiability. The negotiable character of an instrument is not affected by a provision even if it authorizes the sale of collateral securities in case the instrument to be not paid at maturity, or it authorizes a confession of judgment if the instrument be not paid at maturity, or waives the benefit of any law intended for the advantage or protection of the obliger, or gives the holder an election to require something to be done in lieu of payment of money. But nothing in this section shall validate any provision or stipulation otherwise illegal. Let's just skip section 6, but I still think that it's important. That's why I included it in my PowerPoint presentation. Section 7. An instrument is payable on demand if it is so expressed to be payable on demand, or at sight, or in presentation, or in which no time for payment is expressed. Where an instrument is issued, is accepted, or endorsed when overdue, it is, as regards the person so issuing, accepting, or endorsing it, payable on demand. Section 8. The instrument is payable to order where it is drawn payable to the order of a specified person, or to him or his order. It may be drawn payable to the order of the following. So, you read those, guys. I'm just gonna skip this slide as well, but it's still important, that's why I included it. Section 9. The instrument is payable to bearer when it is expressed to be payable, when it is payable to a person named therein, when it is payable to the order of a fictitious or non-existing person, and such fact was known to the person making it payable, when the name of the paid does not purport to be the name of any person, or when the only or last endorsement is an endorsement in blank. Section 10. This section is very important. The instrument need not follow the language of this act, but any terms are sufficient which clearly indicate an intention to conform to the requirements hereof. Meaning, there's no how will I say this? There is no template, like exact. There's no template with the exact words that a negotiable instrument has to follow or to comply with, for as long as the intentions, the manifest intention of the parties involved is to make that instrument negotiable, and the terms that they've used are sufficient, then yes, they can consider that instrument a negotiable instrument. Second part of my report is consideration. Every negotiable instrument is deemed prima facie to have been issued for a valuable consideration, and every person whose signature appears thereon to have become a party thereto for value. Section 25 of this Act states that value is any consideration sufficient to support a simple contract. An antecedent or pre-existing debt constitutes value and is deemed such whether the instrument is payable on demand or at a future time. Here are some important notes. Illegal consideration does not affect the negotiability of the instrument. Under the negotiable instruments law, there are only two ways by which the negotiable character of the instrument can be terminated. And this is by restrictively endorsing the instrument or by discharge through payment or otherwise. Illegal consideration is not one of the means of destroying the negotiable character of the instrument. Third is negotiation. I've already read the definition of the negotiation earlier, but let's just have a quick run through about this. An instrument is negotiated when it is transferred from one person to another in such manner as to constitute the transferee the holder thereof. What are the methods of transfer? Assignment, operation of law, and by negotiation, which may be completed by endorsement. Section 31 states the endorsement must be written on the instrument itself or upon a paper attached thereto. The signature of the endorser without additional words is a sufficient endorsement. So, there's actually a whole lot of explanation about the nature of an endorsement. I just tried to condense it so it'll fit in one slide. I'm not going to delve into each one of them, but at least we have an overview about the nature of an endorsement, how it works. So let's move on to the next slide. Where is the endorsement written? Of course, the endorsement must be written on the instrument itself or upon a paper attached thereto. May a launch be used where there is room on instrument for endorsement? What does this mean? With this word, allonge. Correct me if I'm wrong with my pronunciation. But allonge is like a separate paper attached to the to the negotiable instrument. Now, it has been held that the use of an allonge is allowable only when there is a physical impossibility of writing the endorsement of the instrument itself, and an endorsement on a separate piece of paper where there is sufficient space on the instrument for endorsement will be considered as a mere assignment and not a negotiation. Again, the general rule is that the endorsement has to be written on the instrument itself. Okay? And the only time that you resort to an allonge or an affixed or attached paper is if there's a physical impossibility, like there's no space for the for your signature to be affixed on that negotiable instrument. But if there is still an option or there's a space there and you just chose to, like, I don't know, for whatever reason you may deem valid, you chose to affix your signature, do the endorsement in a separate paper, then that will be considered a mere assignment and not a negotiation. Section 32 basically states that the endorsement must be an endorsement of the entire instruments. The instrument must be the endorsement. My bad. That word is supposed to be endorsement. Anyway, the endorsement must be of the entire instrument. An endorsement of a part of the instrument does not operate as a negotiation thereof. These are the effects of partial endorsement. It will not operate as an endorsement. Although it may not operate as an endorsement, it may constitute a valid assignment binding between the parties. The person to whom the instrument is endorsed would not be considered an endorsee, but merely an assignee, and would therefore take the instrument subject to the defenses available between the original parties. But, there's a but, where the instrument has been paid in part, may be endorsed as to the residue. Section 33 and 34 talks about special and blank endorsements. An endorsement may be either special or in blank, and also may be either restrictive or qualified or conditional. Just read over that. Section 35 basically explains how to convert a blank endorsement to a special endorsement. How do you do it? The holder may convert a blank endorsement to a special endorsement by simply writing over the signature of the endorser in blank any contract consistent with the character of the endorsement. Part 4, Rights of the Holder. Section 51, the holder of a negotiable instrument may... Please erase this. Was probably half asleep when I typed this slide. So, let's start over. The holder of a negotiable instrument may sue thereon in his own name, and payment to him in due course discharges the instrument. These are the general rights of a holder. He may sue on the instrument in his own name. Second, he may receive payment, and if the payment is in due course, the instrument is fully discharged. General presumption. Generally, every holder is prima facie a holder in due course. Anyone who claims otherwise let me just arrange this angle. Okay. Sorry, there's something wrong with my phone. A warning message keeps on popping up. Anyway, anyone who claims otherwise must prove that the holder in question acquired the instrument with one or more of the conditions lacking. Any holder proved to have taken an instrument with one of the conditions enumerated lacking is not a holder in due course. So we keep on talking about holder in due course. What is a holder in due course? It's stated under Section 52 of this Act. A holder in due course is a holder who has taken the instrument under the following conditions. First, that it is complete and regular upon its face. Second, that he became the holder of it before it was overdue and without notice, that it has been previously dishonored, if such was the fact. Third, that he took it in good faith and for value. Fourth, that at the time it was negotiated to him, he had no notice of any infirmity in the instrument or defect in the title of the person negotiating it. When is a person not deemed holder in due course? Where an instrument payable on demand is negotiated on an unreasonable length of time after its issue, the holder is not deemed a holder in due course. We're almost done, guys. We are on the fifth part of my report, liabilities of parties. Section 60. Section 60 states the liability of the maker. If you remember, a maker is one of the parties involved in a promissory note. Now, the maker of a negotiable instrument, by making it, engages that he will pay it according to its tenor and admits the existence of the payee and his then capacity to endorse. The maker is to pay absolutely for the note according to its tenor. He is primarily liable. And one has signed an instrument as a maker is presumed to have acted with care and to have signed the instrument with full knowledge of its contents, unless, of course, a fraud is proved. So, a maker, the maker is considered to have done the promissory note or the negotiable instrument in full capacity. And voluntarily, of course. That's the reason why he's primarily liable, because he should know what he's doing. Duh. Section 61, liability of the drawer. Again, this is one of the parties involved in a bill of exchange, if you remember. That's why I told you to take note of the different parties involving negotiable instruments, right? So that you will not be confused. What are the liabilities of a drawer? The drawer, by drawing the instrument, admits the existence of the payee and his then capacity to endorse, and engages that, on due presentment, the instrument will be accepted or paid, or both, according to its tenor, and that if it be dishonored and the necessary proceedings on dishonor be duly taken, he will pay the amount thereof to the holder or to any subsequent endorser who may be compelled to pay it. But the drawer may insert in the instrument an express stipulation negativing or limiting his own liability to the holder. I'm going to explain that now. So why is a drawer secondarily liable? Again, I think I've already explained it earlier, but here, he engages merely that the bill will be accepted or paid or both according to its tenor, that he will pay only when it is dishonored, and the necessary proceedings of dishonor are duly taken. In our example earlier, the drawer is Shri, right? And the check that I've showed you earlier. The drawee is NYZ Bank, and Jericho is the payee. Now, if Jericho, the payee, is also the holder, the one in possession of the negotiable instrument, goes to NYZ Bank, and NYZ Bank dishonors the instrument, that's the only time that the drawer, Shri, is liable for the instrument. Understood? Again, the drawer will only pay when the instrument is dishonored and when the necessary proceedings of dishonor are duly taken. Now, the liability of the drawer is subject to the two conditions and attaches only upon their fulfillment. The drawer, by merely drawing the bill and signing his name in the bill as such drawer, that more impliedly engages to be so secondarily liable as if he has incorporated the provisions of Section 61 of the bill. If the bill is not paid, the drawer becomes liable for the payment of its value to the holder, provided that notice of dishonor is given, just like what I've said. Question: is drawer of unaccepted bill primarily liable? Answer is yes. It was held that until the bill has been accepted, the drawer is the principal debtor, and after acceptance, the drawer or acceptor is the principal debtor, and the drawer becomes secondarily liable. That is very clear. The only time the drawee or acceptor rather becomes a principal debtor is when the same has accepted the negotiable instrument. Okay? Again, until the bill or the instrument has been accepted, the drawer will be primarily liable for it. But once the drawee or acceptor accepts the instrument, once it honors the instrument, then the primary liability will be transferred from the drawer to the acceptor. The law, however, allows the drawer to negate or limit his ability by express stipulation. So if in the instrument there are words such as without recourse, or I shall not be liable in case of non-payment or non-acceptance, then yes, it will negate the liability of the drawer. Section 62, it talks about the liability of acceptors. The acceptor, by accepting the instrument, engages that he will pay it according to the tenor of his acceptance and admits that the existence of the drawer, the genuineness of his signature, his capacity and authority to draw the instrument, and the existence of the payee and his then capacity to endorse. Again, guys, the acceptor is a drawee who accepted the instrument. Just to clear out confusions there. The acceptor engages to pay absolutely according to the tenor of its acceptance. His liability is not subject to any condition. His acceptance immediately places a legal liability on him for the payment of the bill in favor of one who became a holder thereof after acceptance, and if he wants to escape liability, it is up to him to show that he is a mere agent of the drawer, or allege and prove any other defense which he has to the liability. Presentment for payment. Section 64 of the Act contemplates that promissory notes, bills of exchange, and check must be presented to the maker, acceptor, or drawee on behalf of the holder. If the same is not done, the parties to the instrument are not liable to the holder. If authorized by agreement or usage, a presentment by way of post is sufficient. But there is an exception. Where a promissory note is payable on demand and is not payable at the specified place, no presentment is necessary in order to charge the maker thereof. Presentment for payment is not necessary to charge persons primarily liable. Guys, it cannot be validly claimed that this presentment of the bill, which is the operative act that makes acceptor liable, under his acceptance. Presentment is like it's like showing the instrument. When you present the instrument, you like show it to the person who's supposed to be liable. However, just because you presented it or you've shown it to the drawee does not necessarily mean that he is immediately liable to it. Again, he must accept it first. The drawee must accept it first for the drawee to become the acceptor. We're almost done, guys. We're already on the 7th part of my report, which includes notice of dishonor. It's just very quick. I only placed the definition of notice of dishonor. By notice of dishonor, it is meant bringing either verbally or by writing to the knowledge of the drawer, endorser of an instrument the fact that a specified negotiable instrument, upon proper proceedings taken, has not been accepted or paid, and that the party notified is expected to pay it. Wrong grammar. It's supposed to be pay. Okay? Where did I get this? Anyway, so it's very much self-explanatory. Notice of dishonor is when the instrument is rejected. After proper proceedings have been taken, the instrument has been rejected, the drawee refuses to accept the instrument. Therefore, the holder has not been compensated, will not be compensated rather. So the party, the drawer, will then be expected to pay it. Like earlier in our example, when Shri again, if NYZ Bank, for a valid reason rather, rejects or refuses to accept the check that Shri signed, then the holder, Jericho, the holder is also the payee for that scenario, can go to Shri and hold her liable for the amount indicated on the instrument. Purpose. What is the purpose of a notice of dishonor? When an instrument is dishonored by non-acceptance or non-payment, notice of such dishonor must be given to persons secondarily liable, as the case may be. Otherwise, such parties are discharged. Section 89 of this Act states that, except as herein otherwise provided, when a negotiable instrument has been dishonored by non-acceptance or non-payment, notice of dishonor must be given to the drawer and to each endorser, and any drawer and endorser to whom such notice not given is discharged. So again, it's self-explanatory, but the notice of dishonor must reach the drawer or the endorser, otherwise they will be discharged. What is discharge of negotiable instruments? Discharging of a negotiable instrument means that all the rights of action under it are completely extinguished and it ceases to be negotiated anymore. Once a negotiable instrument completes its purpose and completes the transactions for which it was intended, it will be discharged and will be converted to a non-negotiable instrument. It cannot be negotiated anymore, guys. Again, the characteristics of it being negotiable are completely extinguished. How do you discharge a negotiable instrument? It's written under Section 119. First, by payment in due course by or on behalf of the principal debtor. Of course, once the payee has been paid the amount promised or ordered on the check or on the bill of exchange or on the promissory note, then the instrument is now discharged. Second, by payment in due course by the party accommodated, where the instrument is made or accepted for his accommodation. Third, by the intentional cancellation thereof by the holder. Fourth, by any other act which will discharge a simple contract for the payment of money. And fifth, when the principal debtor becomes the holder of the instrument at or after maturity in his own right. Whoa! So that ends my PowerPoint presentation. That's all for my report. Rafi will take care of the rest. Thank you so much for listening, guys, and for spending your precious time with me. If you have any questions or clarifications about my report, you may drop your queries in the comment section below. I'll try to answer it to the best of my abilities. Also, my PowerPoint presentation will be forwarded later. Just send me your emails, or I can just send it through Messenger, but I doubt if it will be sent through Messenger. I tried sending it earlier in our class GC, but it won't send. I don't know why. Probably because the size of the file is too big. So if you want to have a copy of my PowerPoint presentation, just send me your email. Okay? I guess that's it. Thank you again, and take care, guys. Follow the government's guidelines. Be cautious and stay safe. See ya when I see ya. Thank you.